Well, hey there, listeners. Kath Langman here, and welcome back to another episode of the Scale My Shopify Store podcast. So we are into 2024 now. I'm still kind of struggling to say the date, but I really want to just continue on the theme a little bit from last week's episode, where I was really talking about a new and different way to think about your goal setting and planning for the year ahead. And I was also inspired a little bit for today's episode by a news article that I read the other day about a 13-year-old kid, I think from Oklahoma, who became the first person to ever win the video game of Tetris. I think Tetris is probably like one of only three video games I've ever learned to play. I'm not much of a gamer, but I don't reckon I would have gotten past level 15. I don't really remember, but it gets so quick and difficult. And it was just believed all of this time to be actually impossible. Like it was an impossible myth to actually finish the game. And apparently finishing the game even shocked the player himself. His name was Willis Gibson. Like I said, he was 13 years old. And he reached level 157 and a score of 999,999. And that launched the never seen before kill screen, which is where the game crashes and there's nothing left to play. Who knew there was 157 levels to the game of Tetris? And I don't know if you knew, I looked this up, but the video game Tetris was first launched in 1985. So it's taken humans nearly 4 decades to master every possible level of that game. Now, thankfully, it doesn't need to take quite that long to achieve each level of growing a business. Really thinking about business growth in terms of distinct levels or phases that we all need to pass through, I think, is where the inspiration from that news article came for today's episode. And of course, understanding what each level of scale actually is and what you need to do at each level and how to master it is going to be a really necessary starting point if you do really want to scale your business successfully and reach a level of scale, right? So I've been in this business or this kind of career anyway for something like 25 years. I've spent most of my career helping business owners to scale their companies through mastering their marketing in order to acquire more customers. And, I guess in, years gone by, I really believed that customer acquisition was the key to scale. And I thought that for a long time. But over the years, and particularly when I started my own business for the first time which would have been like 2007, maybe, I really began to realize that we were really just scratching the surface when it relates to scaling a company, because scale is, it really is about a whole lot more than just revenue, like getting more customers and selling more stuff, right? So I want to talk to you about the 5 distinct levels or phases that you really need to pass through in order to successfully scale a profitable business. I am going to mention a bonus 6th one at the end, but really there's these 5 core levels that we all need to master in order to scale a successful, profitable business. And if you aren't growing nearly as fast as you want, which I definitely have seen a lot of in the last probably forever, actually. The chances are that you are stuck in one of these levels and you just don't realize it, right? So in this episode, I'm going to walk you through the 5 levels of scale, and I'm going to be describing what you need to be doing and achieving at each level before you can move on to the next. Now, I just want to point out a couple of quick things as well. So I know a number of my listeners would identify as big picture visionaries. Those of you who really love the dreaming and the planning and the coming up with new ideas and things that you can do. I know you guys, I'm a little bit like that too. You guys love to envisage what you'll be doing in level 5, so I just want to point out that it really is necessary to pass through each of these levels in the right order. It's like if you try and put the cart before the horse, it's just not going to budge very easily. Or if you relate this to Tetris, if you start at level 157, you probably aren't going to last very long. You'll be dying of sore fingers and not being able to blink, probably. For those of you in my audience who are the organized, loving people, you will no doubt love this episode because of the step-by-step nature of what I'm about to share with you. It's probably going to very much appeal to you. So without further ado, let's kind of dive into these 5 levels of scale. I'm going to just go through them in order because why not? That's going to make sense, right? And so the very first level that we need to pass through is the launch stage, which kind of makes sense. That's the starting line for everyone in business. So by launch, I'm kind of putting together the lead up to actually starting a business. There's a whole lot of things that obviously all of us are going through in order to actually give birth to a business, from your research, from like product development, sourcing products, thinking about your brand, getting all of those sorts of things ready to go. If obviously this is an e-commerce based podcast, so can't launch an e-commerce business without a website, all of those sorts of things, right? But so that's kind of your pre-launch. So I'm not kind of keeping pre-launch as a separate phase here. I'm just contracting that into the launch stage. And then obviously when you do launch, we're trying to actually get some traction with people buying from us, right? So what do you need to be doing in order to master the launch phase? Because I would say I actually see a lot of small businesses, particularly in e-commerce, get stuck here. And I think I'll explain in a minute why I think people get stuck here. But really what we need to be focusing on at the launch stage is, number one, you've got to start getting your first customers to buy, right? And to do this, I don't want to see any of you, unless you've got a lot of money to burn, I don't want to see any of you just, throwing thousands of dollars out there without, at least doing these things that I'm going to say. So you really want to tap into your existing network as much as you can. You want to be using as many organic marketing strategies as possible. So things like really working on your search engine optimization is one thing here, but secondly, really focusing on building your audience by creating and sharing as much good quality, relevant, organic content as you can. Really, the launch stage, it has to be about visibility, brand visibility as much as anything. And I would say most people get stuck here because they're just not passing through this kind of manual organic hustle stage to the next level. So we do need to do this. I don't think that you can skip this part. At the end of the day, brand visibility and really trying to establish that ultimately it's establishing a content creation and sharing process and a cadence of getting this kind of stuff out there into the internet if you're an e-commerce business, or even in the real world. Lots of you are brands who would be doing other things as well, like exhibiting at expos and trade shows and doing all sorts of other things as well to really start building your brand awareness. But building the size of your audience is critical here. I remember back when I first, or early days of my first business, there was a well-known Australian e-commerce business called Nourished Life that I don't even think that it really exists under that name anymore, but it was an incredibly successful business for a very long time. I've always admired, the business and the founder as well. She's gone on to start Sans Drinks, which I also shop from these days. She started as a blogger first. Now, obviously, blogging as a medium is probably not, what's popular, and, it's probably not what's going to get you traction now in 2024. But at the time that she launched her business, it was a very, very successful way of building an audience. And she, so she really I don't even know how long she did this for, but for quite some time she was really just about blogging and building the size of her audience. And then when she actually turned it into an e-commerce business, by this point she really had established a sizable audience who were really wanting to buy from her. And so she was very quickly able to monetize that audience, is what I'm trying to get at here. So, but a lot of small businesses, they start and they kind of skip this audience building stage, and they want to go straight into making a ton of money. And I get that. Look, we all want to do that. The whole point of starting a business is to make money. But we just can't skip through the audience building necessity of the launch phase. So really, really honing your ability to attract and build an audience. And in the beginning, try and do it with as much kind of free and organic and, it's good old hustle at that early stage, right? So, starting by tapping into your existing network and, really going from there. Once you have your first customers buying from you, though, aside from anything else, what you should be learning at that stage is what kind of marketing content helps to win those sales. You really need to be approaching this from a bit of a scientific approach. You just, this is it. Don't take any of this stuff personally at all, right? Like, this is about really identifying what your customers are going to respond to. It's likely to be different to what you yourself might prefer. So many times in my own experience, and certainly with clients that I work with as well, the things that we personally would choose or personally might respond to is often not what the majority of our audience might actually respond to. So, you've got to use that first launch stage to do a bit of trial and error and really try and figure out what is the kind of content, what's the kind of messaging, what are the kinds of offers, what are the reasons why customers buy, is there a look and feel of the the content, or a type of content, or a type of platform to where your customers hang out and where they're really going to respond to your messages and buy. You've got to figure this out, right? And then once you've got some information there and some data, then you can start to move into the growth phase. So level 2 is the growth phase. And this is really where everyone wants to start. We want to hit the ground running. We really want to be able to, open our online store and just have lots of customers come in. And sadly, it doesn't just happen that easily. But, once you really have got some data, you've got a bit of an idea of the kinds of marketing messages, what the kind of content and all of that kind of stuff that your audience really resonates with and respond to, then you want to try and systemize and automate that as much as possible. So in terms of the actual marketing, like at this stage, you should have identified who your ideal customer is. You should have identified, like I said, the kind of content that they're going to really respond to. But chances are your audience is still pretty small, right? So at this point, you really need to just focus in hard on acquiring customers. You want to be continuing to build that audience as much as possible, building your database so that you are building your owned audience, not just relying on platforms where you don't own the audience, like social media. You definitely want to be focusing in hard on building your own list. But then, as much as possible, really just continuing that trial and error with your marketing, but with the extra data that you now have to maximize your sales conversions. This growth stage has to be about acquiring customers, right? So in terms of systemizing and automating your traffic and sales, this is where you would really want to start your paid advertising. I mean, at the launch phase, you can definitely do some paid advertising, but it has to be a little bit more skewed to building brand awareness, brand visibility, building your audience, and then low cost ways of trying to acquire customers, as in getting people to buy for the first time. In the growth stage, you can go much more aggressively towards advertising to really convert new customers, and also use as much kind of we're in 2024, right? Like, we've got a lot of technology that is available to us, and you can definitely grow more quickly and convert more sales at a higher rate by using sales automation technology, such as Klaviyo being my favorite tool for e-commerce, of course. And so those are the things that you really want to focus on here. Now, at this point, this would be another point where a lot of customers do kind of struggle to, not customers, but business owners struggle to pass through this particular phase as well. And, I would say that, that's probably because most businesses are business owners. They're wearing nearly all the hats in the first, 2 stages or 2 levels of growing their business. At this stage, hopefully you are starting to get a little bit of help, maybe, with order fulfillment and perhaps, a VA or a marketing assistant just to help with the volume of, computer work that you have to do to produce all of the content and to, respond to customer inquiries and to do all of the different things. So hopefully you are starting to get a little bit of help at this stage, but, chances are you are still doing the majority of everything yourself. And, when that's the case, it can be really difficult to, number one, feel like your business will ever be able to afford to pay for more help and to be able to scale up. Cash flow is often still a bit of a problem here. Usually in this growth stage, you're still not quite at that point where things are predictable and, that you can feel like you can relax a little bit knowing that, all of the sales will continue to come through. So, it is a bit of it can be a bit of a crisis of confidence, I guess, at this stage. And so I just want you to know that it is normal, and, there are things that you can and should be doing to pass through this level and get to the next stage. But I also will say that level 2 and 3, which I'll share in a minute, oftentimes we're going around in a cycle between these two a little bit. And that's also a little bit normal. So level 3, so just so that you understand what I'm saying here, and hopefully this will make sense for you, level 3 is the optimize stage. And so at this point, this is where you are really wanting to get the most profitable results, I suppose, from your efforts. This is, there is another stage as well later on where we really are going to dive more into that. But when it comes to optimizing, it's like, think about, your website conversion rate, for example. You're going to have a conversion rate, whatever that might be, when you start getting people to buy from you, right? So the conversion rate being traffic to sales. But over time, you want to improve that as much as possible, right? So, it makes sense that the higher your conversion rate, the better your results will be off the same number of website visitors or the same traffic, right? So the optimized stage is where you really need to understand and improve your results. You really need to get into the weeds of the data. So this is about really building out your metrics tracking dashboard. You can certainly use apps for that, although a lot of the ones that are any good are pretty expensive. So I still like to use good old-fashioned spreadsheets for this. I know that it can be a bit of a drag and a little bit time-consuming to spend time every week documenting your metrics into a spreadsheet. However, in the act of doing that, it does actually give you that regular touch point with the data so that you're looking at it, you're thinking about it, and you're making it your business to understand not just what the data means, but what you should do next based on that data, right? So really having that regular data tracking and review process where you're monitoring your results and using that information to make changes to your website, to your marketing, to your advertising, and ultimately to improve each metric. And each of these metrics, and look, you can and should be doing this across your whole business. So you can do this with your profit and loss statement as well. But in terms, with an e-commerce business, it's largely going to be about really, mastering the digital marketing side of things so that you can get that traffic and sales cranking when it comes to optimizing, right? So you're going to grow, you're going to, spend more money on ads. You're going to maybe layer in another promotional strategy, or launch a new product as well. Like that's kind of growth stage stuff. And then you might spend a bit of time, reviewing and understanding your metrics and tweaking and optimizing them. So for example, you might launch a new product and, you'll go out with a particular campaign. There'll be various different aspects of that marketing. It could be, new section to your website, some new ads on social media. It could be, a few emails to your email list. I mean, at the very least, I would hope that it's those things plus some organic content. You might go the extra mile and do some additional things like, get some product out to some content creators, brand reps, influencers, whatever you want to call them. And do a few extra things. But the point being that you make that effort. That's a growth stage type activity, and then you need to go into the optimize stage again and really monitor what's going on and understand those results. Because if you do not undergo that stage, you're just going to be guessing all the time with your marketing, and you will never really gain the knowledge or the clarity or have the confidence to be able to push further with your business, because you just won't know what's working and what's not. And I would say, so that's why I would say a lot of people do get stuck in the growth stage. They are what I would say are ostriches about data. They've got their head in the sand. They don't want to deal with metrics, numbers, spreadsheets, any kind of data tracking tools. They don't want to understand their analytics. It feels a little bit too difficult and mysterious for a lot of people. So I guess at the end of the day, there's really only one way to get through that, and that is to get through it. You just can't abdicate on that level of growing a business, I'm sorry to say. So all of those listeners who feel a little bit like you're allergic to spreadsheets, you're just going to have to try and inoculate yourself to that and find a way to master it, even if it means getting somebody to help, getting somebody on your team or an advisor or somebody that lives and breathes that kind of stuff to help you with that, and who's going to be on your side. I have someone on my team who is that person. She helps all of our clients with all of that, and to be honest, I mean, I know how to do it, and I certainly love having data. I don't love having to get into the weeds with documenting it and really doing all of that stuff. To me, that's kind of nitty gritty and boring. And so, ultimately, though, I just made it my business to do it until I was able to get somebody to help. So, if you don't love spreadsheets and you don't love the nitty gritty data, then just try and persevere until you can get some help. Or if you really just know that you need some help in order to persevere and get through this level, then do that. And then, I guess know that in growing your business, there's always going to be an element of that growth stage and optimize stage. Certainly optimizing, helps you to, like I said earlier, become a little bit more profitable with any marketing efforts that you're implementing. But once you kind of get the hang of those two levels, then you get to move into the scale stage. And I will say, not necessarily everyone wants to move into this next stage, and that's fine. Like at the end of the day, this should be everyone's individual choice. And a successful business, in inverted commas, is whatever you define it to be, right? So a successful business does not have to be one that is at a very large level of revenue or size of team or anything like that, if that's not what you want, right? If you do want that though, then, you want to be moving into the scale stage. And, at the end of the day, part of what you're going to have to do is realize that to get from, optimize to scale, you can't do it alone. Like at the optimized stage, you can probably do it mostly alone. Like you can probably do it with, maybe some help with fulfilling orders and perhaps a little bit of help with the marketing, whether it's a VA, whether it's a freelancer, or even outsourcing to a team. You can certainly do that, but ultimately you can run a very, very lean team and most things are going to be falling back on your shoulders. The business itself, in terms of planning, in terms of implementing anything, any new strategies, it's really going to be you driving it. It'll be a very you-centric business. But when you move into the scale phase, you have to be, you just actually can't move into the scale phase if you are the most valuable asset to your business. So what you need to be able to do is to start divesting some of your responsibilities and being able to get more leverage into the business. And that's going to mean building a team. It's, from a marketing perspective, certainly it's going to involve, scaling up in terms of your ad spend, probably introducing a number of new traffic channels, certainly adding new products to your range, and other ways that you could expand as well, or scale would be expanding via wholesale or export if you have the sort of product that lends itself to those things. But yeah, scaling up, you're not going to be able to do it alone. So if you are a very you-centric business and, you are doing most things yourself, and you feel like if even, when you do ask somebody else to do something, that they never do it how you want it done, or, it'll just be quicker if you did it yourself, then you're going to stay stuck in that, growth to optimize levels. And you need to, really focus on being able to systemize your business, to document all your processes, all of that. Again, for a visionary or a creative personality, that stuff can be really hard. And again, I would say try and get some help with it. And I don't mean spending a lot of money on external consultants or anything like that. In my business, I'm the one who is directing the team, and I'm also getting the team to actually do a lot of that kind of process documentation stuff. So I will, direct them in how to do things the first few times, and then I get them to document it because I just don't want to do that stuff. So, but it is a necessary thing to achieve. And of course, yeah, like I said, from a marketing perspective, spending more money on ads, adding new traffic channels. Also, at this point, you should have a pretty sizable database as well in terms of your list of subscribers, really being able to do a lot more with that through things like using the AI algorithms behind Klaviyo these days are so clever. You can get really, really sophisticated with segmentation. You can use it for with the predictive analysis. You can be doing a lot of split testing in there to really, again, just optimizing at scale, I guess is the best way to put it. And also, yeah, like adding new traffic channels, that's going to really help you to build your audience as well, and just get more eyeballs on your website at scale. So once you pass through, once you get to that stage, at the scale stage, you can probably understand it's like, again, it's like growth and optimize, but on steroids almost. You're still really focused in hard on acquiring new customers because you are trying to get, those new sources of traffic, as well as, spending more money on your existing channels. Things like adding new products to your range. I mean, that's as much about getting new customers as it is about driving repeat purchases. And in order to scale a profitable business, we do need to have customers coming back again and again, and to increase the lifetime value of our customers over time. But, you're still trying new things at that stage. And anytime that you're trying something new, anytime you do anything for the first time, it's not going to be the best you've ever done it, right? So when you pass through to the profit stage, this is again another level of optimizing. So, this is where you really want to try and increase your bottom line net profits, whereas in the scale stage, you're really growing your top line revenue, right? So at this point, it's, you're doing things like trying to lower your cost of goods, for example, or increase your prices so that you've got more margin in what you're selling. You can do that also by, adding some additional products. How you go to the supermarket, although these days, I guess there's a lot of self-checkout related stuff, but maybe I'm showing my age here. in the past, you'd go, well, you can go to any retail store. Probably they use this sort of strategy where, you get what you want and then you get to the checkout and there's a whole lot of additional things that are pretty low cost at the checkout. And, you'll inevitably end up adding a few things to your basket because they don't cost very much. And those things aren't going to cost much to the retailer either. And however, it increases the basket size and usually the margin as well. So those sorts of add-on products, they should add value to whatever your customers are buying, but they shouldn't cost you a whole lot of money to provide. So ideally, improve your margin as well as your actual average order value. But also at this profit stage, you've got to focus on improving your operating efficiencies. So the way your team works, a lot of the time with e-commerce, the knee-jerk reaction is I just need to sell more stuff and I'll make more money. But there's also the imperative to be more efficient and quicker at doing things, right? So for example, take your order fulfillment team. At this level of scale, you would certainly have a team working here. How many orders can they pack in a day? Are there ways that you can, get them to work more efficiently so that they can pack more orders in a day or more orders in an hour, right? So that means that the effective hourly rate for somebody packing an order is reduced because they can produce more in an hour, right? So how can you become more efficient in operating the business is really important here. And then the third thing that you really want to focus in on here is how can you increase the number and frequency of your repeat purchases. So at the end of the day, a profitable business is the one where the lifetime value of your customers is higher, right? And there's only really 3 ways that you can increase that, and that is increasing your average order value and increasing the recency and frequency of each purchase. And the velocity between a first purchase and a repeat purchase here is pretty influential as well. Like it's all well and good if you have a customer who buys 5 times from you in 5 years, but if if you have to wait for a year between each purchase, then that customer is going to be, you have to wait a long time for that that customer to be valuable for your business. So whereas if you can get them to purchase every 6 months or every 3 months or whatever you can ultimately aim for, then you are going to find that not only is your cash flow better, you'll also be more profitable as well. And that's really the goal for all of us in business. So I did hint early in this episode that I had a bonus 6th one. And so this is not so much passing through another level in your business, but certainly it is a scale strategy, and that is acquiring other businesses. So, once you really have mastered, really growing and optimizing and scaling and improving your net profits in your business, most likely you're making more money in your business and you're keeping more money at the end of the day. Obviously, you can keep scaling and optimizing and profiting in your own business, but sometimes a business is going to have like a bit of a ceiling for how much it can possibly grow. I know that was certainly the case with my first business being quite a niche product, modern cloth nappy. And so, at a certain point, it really was, there wasn't much more scope to grow from there. And so at that point, what you can do is, obviously you could sell your business, but if you do want to keep scaling and growing, you can start investing those funds in other businesses. So, of course, you could go back and launch another business yourself, or if you want to kind of skip past that, you can acquire or buy another business that might be at, say, the growth stage. So that's my bonus 6th scaling level. But really, I just wanted to go through those 5 core levels of scaling a profitable e-commerce business, and just hope that, to help you guys, I guess, identify where you are at, and what you need to tick off, so to speak. I always love a good to-do list. What do you need to tick off in order to pass through the level that you are at into the next level? And also hopefully knowing what the levels are and what you need to achieve at each level of growth. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of confidence that, yes, whilst you might feel a little bit stuck at one level, it's actually quite normal to be experiencing those sorts of problems. And here's the things that you need to actually implement and put in place in order to move through to the next level. So hopefully knowledge is power in this regard. And, this has given you a little bit of inspiration and maybe direction as well, so that you know what to spend your time on, what marketing you should be focusing on, and what other kind of operational things you need to be doing in order to grow your business successfully into whatever that looks like for you, of course. Now, next week, I'm going to continue my theme of kind of planning for your business. It is my usual focus in January. I'm going to be diving a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of how to turn your revenue goals into an implementable marketing plan, basically. So again, this is going to be a new way of looking at it, and give you some good juicy ideas for making your 2024 goals come to reality. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I shall look forward to being with you again next week. One final shout out, if you haven't already got my 2024 e-commerce marketing playbook, then grab that for free at katherinelangman.com/playbook. And there's some really good information in there that will also help you get you on your way, start getting traction with traffic and sales in 2024. That's it from me this week. I look forward to being with you again on the show next week. Bye for now.